Today I'm going to be doing my informative speech for public speech class, and today I wanted to talk to you. It was a Saturday night. Me and my friend were hanging out over at his place, and we were talking on and on, chilling, and eventually we went on to the subject of the new PlayStation 5 that just came out, and me and him were both talking about how we wanted to get one, but we couldn't afford it anyways. So eventually I went home, and I started scrolling through Facebook, and I know this happened to everybody, not just me. You're scrolling through Facebook, and eventually you see the ads for something you have never looked up before, but all of a sudden it's showing up on your feed. Well, I know this happened to all of us, and I want to talk to you today about an operation from the government and a whistleblower who called it out. I want to talk to you today about the NSA. The NSA is the National Security Agency and Operation Stellar Wind. The NSA was created in 1952 under the Truman administration for counter-terrorism and information across the globe that would be any threat to the United States. And in 2013, Edward Snowden leaked information about an operation that was hacking our emails, our photos, and our files. I'm going to be going with you over the NSA, Edward Snowden's involvement with the NSA, and what the after effects were of the leaked information. I want to talk to you about Edward Snowden first. Edward Snowden was an employee of the CIA for about 8 years until he quit his job at the CIA and became a subcontractor for the NSA. There, during his time at the NSA in Hawaii, where he was stationed at, he was working with multiple people in IT, and from there he was able to make friends and use their passcodes and get information to gather up enough documentation for when he found out about this Operation Stellar Wind. And whenever he got enough information, in 2013 he flew out to Japan, and in Japan he called upon many different journalists and news reporters that he leaked the information to and gave extensive interviews to, which then those news reporters gave to the general public when it was released. And with that leaked information, the first documentation was the NSA's court order to Verizon, a court order made by the NSA and FBI for Verizon to disclose all telephone communication and data from anybody who used the company. Here's the first documentation from that court order. The court order having found the application of the Bureau of Investigation, FBI, for an order requiring the production of tangible things from Verizon Business Network Services Incorporated on behalf of the MCI Communication Services. This is hereby ordered that the custodian of records shall produce to the National Security Association upon service of this order and continue production. And that is just a small documentation of many, which the next one I would like to follow with is PRISM. PRISM is a surveillance program that was under Operation Stellar Wind, used by the NSA. It is an internet data collection program, and with the collections, they collected data from emails, chats, photos, and profiles, and anything they could get their hands on that was on the World Wide Web. One slide from this PRISM documentation is the providers that they were getting this information from: Microsoft, Google, Facebook, Paltalk, YouTube. They were collecting every single piece of information and data they could get from this. Here is a diagram from when it started. First they collected from Microsoft in 9/11/2007, to Yahoo, Google in 2009, Facebook, and so on and so forth. They were collecting all this secret documentation that was meant to be private and shared within your family or your close friends, and they were collecting all your data and information. With the following documentation being leaked, it has reached the court, and soon enough, the court, and through many protests, they were able to come to an agreement that this was unconstitutional, and something had to be done about the NSA and their hacking of your private information. First reform to the NSA was the ending of mass phone collection and collection of your data. Another reform was to get rid of their use of your internet data and all the emails and files that they have retained, and they got rid of all of it and never looked at any of your data again. So to go back over my main points, Edward Snowden helped to get all the documentation that was, and then he leaked it to everybody and to news reporters, which all the documentation I showed you, plus many, many more that you could look up on your own on the Guardian website that I got my information from, which was the news reports that Snowden released his documentation to. So they have all the documentation you need to look at, and plus the reform of the NSA was the aftermath of this documentation being released. You know, they say during this, they said that if you had nothing to hide or nothing that you didn't want the government to see, then you shouldn't be worried about that. Well, they also say the same thing about when they arrest you. Of recently, there have been many arrests that have been made, and saying the same thing, that if you have nothing to hide or nothing to be scared about the government, then you should have no problems with it. But I find that if you could use that for that argument, then you could use the same argument for whenever they come into your house or they have no warrants for searching inside of your vehicle. It's a constitutional right that you should be able to have your own privacy, and they're trying to push the envelope on how far they could take it to how far they could get into your private life. And so then we need to push back, just like Edward Snowden did and became a whistleblower, to show that you can't be pushed and the government should not be able to enforce their will on you. Thank you.